Hey, it's Coach Latham, your SOL review coach, and today we're going to take a look at linear equations and inequalities. I should have linear at the top of this page, although it's part of the larger section on general equations and inequalities. In part one today, we're going to be looking at solving linear equations, solving linear inequalities, and then cheating, utilizing the resources that we have to solve those equations. So without further ado, let's get into it. These are some of the easier equations that you would be asked to solve in an algebra course. In fact, some of them are taught in middle school. And we have this whole idea of undoing whatever is being done to x. And then we will undo that, and it will cancel it out on the same side as x and have an impact on the other side, therefore getting us to the solution. So in this first one, we've got 3 times x. And so the opposite of multiplying by 3 is going to be to divide by 3. These will cancel out, and we get x equals 6. And the second one right here, we're adding an 8 to x, so we're going to undo that by subtracting an 8. We've got to do it to both sides. This part cancels out, and we get x equals 2. In our third equation over here, it's x minus 2. We're going to undo that by adding a 2 to both sides. That's going to cancel this part out, and we're going to get x is equal to 9. And finally, we've got an example of division, x divided by 3. Well, the opposite of dividing by 3 is to multiply by 3. We'll undo it. Those 3's will cancel out. And so our final answer is x is equal to 12. These are typically called one-step equations because we have one number to cancel out, and we cancel it out by doing the opposite operation to both sides. As long as you do the same thing to both sides, you keep the answer intact. Now, on the bottom here, we've got a couple of examples of two-step equations. And the thing that you need to think of is that solving an equation is really doing a problem backwards. So we kind of use the backwards order of operations. We're going to get rid of this 7 first. And so the opposite of subtracting 7 is going to be to add a 7 to both sides. And so you're going to get 3x is equal to 12. And then after we get 3x is equal to 12, we still need to get rid of this 3. The opposite of multiplying by 3 is to divide by 3. So these will cancel out. And we're going to finish up with x is equal to 4. We're going to do the last one on this page the same way. The first number that we're going to get rid of is the 3. The opposite of adding 3 is going to be to subtract the 3 from both sides. That's going to cancel this one out. So we're going to be left with x over 2 is equal to 4 minus 3, which is 1. And now the only thing left to do is to get rid of the 2, and x is being divided by 2. The opposite of dividing by 2 is to multiply by 2. That's going to cancel those out, and 1 times 2 is 2 for your answer. Something that you learn new in Algebra 1 is this whole idea of solving literal equations for a specific variable. And what that means is you've got more than one letter in an equation, and you're going to rewrite it so that that one letter is by itself. In this first one right here, we say solve for a. So we want to get a by itself. Right here's the a. And you ask yourself, well, hey, what's on the same side of the equation with a? And in this case, it's a plus 5. So to balance that out or to get rid of that, we're going to subtract a 5 from this side, which means we're also going to subtract a 5 from that side. This stuff cancels out. So a is by itself, and on the other side, we're left with c minus 5. You can't put those together because they're not like terms. This doesn't look like the actual answer to anything, but when we say solve for a given variable, what they mean is getting the letter by itself, and a is now by itself. We'll do the same thing in this second one. We've got xy equals 8. We're trying to get the y by itself, so we got to get rid of the x, and the opposite of multiplying by x is dividing by x. So we divide this side by x, we divide this side by x. These x's cancel out, leaving y all alone. That's what we want. And so our final answer is 8 over x. The next one, interest equals principal times rate times time, or I equals PRT for short. And we want to solve for P in this case. And P is right here. P is being multiplied by R and T. So the opposite of multiplying by RT is to divide by RT. All the RT's cancel out over here, leaving P all by itself. That's what we want. And it's going to be interest is I divided by RT. So that's what P is equal to. Now the next one's kind of tricky because of the fraction. Dividing by 1 or multiplying by 1/3 is the same as dividing by 3. That's important for this problem. So the first thing we're going to do to get h by itself is going to be to get rid of this 1/3. Like I said, that's the same as dividing by 3. The opposite of dividing by 3 is to multiply by 3. So that's going to cancel this fraction out right here. So we're going to get BH is equal to 3V. Once we get there, it's pretty easy to work our way towards the answer. We still need to get the capital B out of the way. The opposite of multiplying by that is to divide by that. So B's will cancel out. So we're going to have H is equal to 3V over B. So there we go for that answer. And finally, the last one, which was on the SOL test a couple years ago, we're going to solve for A. Well, A plus B is on top of the fraction together. So for all intents and purposes, these two numbers are grouped together. So the first thing we're going to have to do is multiply by 2 to get rid of that fraction. So we're going to multiply this side by 2 and this side by 2. That all cancels out. So now we just have A plus B. And then x times 2 is 2x. We're still trying to get A by itself, so we got to get rid of the B. The opposite of subtracting B is to subtract a B. And so our final answer is going to be A is equal to 2x minus B. It seems like every year on the SOL test, they put one very hard equation on there for you to solve. And here are some examples off of previous SOL tests. The first one, we've got a couple of complex fractions here, or tough fractions. 6p plus 4 over 6 is equal to 4p minus 8 over 3. When you get a problem like this, it's important to remember that little trick about cross multiplying. So we're going to cross multiply here. 3 times 6p plus 4 is equal to 6 times 4p minus 8. We're going to distribute. 3 times 6p is 18p. 3 times 4 is 12 equals 6 times 4p is going to be 24p, and 6 times minus 8 is going to be minus 48. Now, we've got p on both sides. We're going to have to move the smaller one, or the one with the smaller coefficient. So I'm going to subtract an 18p from this side, which means that I also subtract an 18p from this side. These cancel out, so that means that I got them all together on the other side. 24p minus 18p is 6p minus 48. We're almost done. Now we're down to a two-step equation. We add a 48 to both sides, and that gets 6p is equal to 60. 12 plus 48 is 60. Divide both sides by 6, and your final answer is P is 10. This second one is really harder than anything I've seen on an SOL test. I kind of put two SOL questions together on this. I did want to show you what it's like to distribute a fraction. And remember, the easy way to do it is that you're going to multiply the top times that number, and then you're going to divide by the number on the bottom. That's the easiest way to distribute a fraction. So 2 times 6 is 12, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. So that makes 4x. 2 times 9 is 18, and 18 divided by 3 is 6. So that's a 6. All right, distributing the 2 is a little bit more straightforward. 2 times 15x is 30x, and 2 times minus 23 is minus 46. Well, now the problem looks like the one we just did. We're going to subtract a 4x from each side. This stuff cancels out. We get 6 is equal to 26x minus 46. Add a 46. 46 and 6 is 52 is equal to 26x. All this canceled out. And then the last step is to divide by 26. And you get x is equal to 2. So there's your answer to that one. Okay, inequalities. Exact same thing as equations, except if you ever divide or multiply by a negative, you have to flip the inequality symbol. So treat this thing just like it's an equation. We've got to get this x by itself right here. So the first thing we're going to do is subtract a 4 from each side. And that's going to 8 minus 4 is 4. It's greater than or equal to negative 2x. And this stuff canceled out. So now we've got to divide both sides by negative 2. I'm going to divide by negative 2 here and divide by negative 2 here. 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. Since I divided by a negative, I take this symbol and I flip it. So it's going to be just like that. And then over here, negative 2 divided by negative 2 cancels out. So here is my final answer. Negative 2 is less than or equal to x, and x is greater than or equal to negative 2 are exactly the same thing, so either answer is acceptable. The one on the right, I'm trying to get x by itself. The first thing I'm going to do is subtract a 6 from each side. So these will cancel out, so I'll have negative 2x is greater than negative 12. That's what I get when I add negative 6 and negative 6. And then I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. Divide by negative 2. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 cancels out, leaving me with just an x. Now I divided by a negative, so this greater than has to become less than, and negative 12 divided by negative 2 is positive 6. So there's your answer to that. Okay guys, I've just got a couple minutes left, and I said I would show you an easy way to get the answers on your graphing calculator if you have one. I'm going to rewrite this first equation, 3x minus 7 minus 5. I put everything on the same side of the equation. Technically it's now equal to 0. I could do the same thing over here. I'm going to put 2/3 times 6x plus 9 minus, I'm bringing this over here, 2 times 15x minus 23 equals 0. Now what I want you to do is to take this first one right here, put it into your calculator on the y equals screen. It's going to go in y equals, and you're going to type in 3x minus 7 minus 5. I want you to graph it, trace it, and see where it crosses the x-axis. Okay, we're back, and you can see where I typed it in up here on the y equals screen. I'm going to hit the graph button, and I'm going to wait for my line to come through. I'm going to hit trace, and my bug is already on the x-axis right there. It says that when y is 0, x is 4. And when we go back and look at this equation, this is the one that we solved earlier and found that the answer was 4. Now you may not think that would save you a lot of time, and on an equation like this one it probably wouldn't, but on an equation like this one it would save you a lot of time. Go through and type this one into your calculator and see what you get. Okay, we're back, and you can see where I typed it in up here. I did put my 2/3 in parentheses because that's a fraction. So now I'll go ahead and hit graph. I'll wait for my line to come through. Come on, line. There you are. And now I'll hit trace. And I need to move my bug to where y is 0. Let's see, we're moving closer to 0 this way. Oh, there he is. Now that I've gotten up to there, I can look over here and see that 2 is my answer. I think that we'll all agree that that's a much easier way to get x equals 2 than the way that we worked this problem out earlier. If you have any problems using your calculator to solve equations, please see your math teacher. This will be something that will really work well for you on the SOL test. Again, anytime you get an equation, you can move everything to one side by undoing the right side. So this 5 becomes minus 5. This 2 times everything becomes minus 2 times everything over here, and you work it out. Look for our next video when we work on quadratic equations. Until then, keep studying for that SOL test.